I opened the front door and froze. Silence too complete. Not the kind of quiet you expect in a home filled with life, laughter, arguments, and chaos, but a quiet that screamed absence. The house smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and something else, something metallic, like fear. My stepdaughter's note sat on the counter, crisp, impersonal, final. The greatest gift for my wedding is if you disappear from our family forever. My wife's nod was still ringing in my ears. I hadn't needed confirmation. I'd already made the call, already planned my exit. And yet, here it was, staring back at me, confirming every shadowed thought I'd buried. I slid the envelope open. Inside was a simple photograph, the living room, empty. I had taken it, but with a twist. Someone had thought they could erase me, but I had vanished first, leaving only my signature behind. My pulse didn't race. I didn't tremble. I smiled because they didn't know the half of it. I remember the early days before the poison settled, before the lies. Before I became the outsider in my own home. When I married her mother, I believed in family. I believed in laughter echoing through these walls, in Sunday dinners where I'd carve the roast and she'd roll her eyes at my jokes. The stepdaughter curling beside her mother in that forced alliance children are compelled to form. I tried to love her, tried to earn her trust. But beneath her polite smiles, I started noticing it, the little digs, the quiet disapproval when I spoke, the way she'd exchange a glance with her mother that said more than words ever could. The first time it really hit me, I was folding laundry. She dropped a wine glass just to watch it shatter, then smirked. Oops. Not that it matters. I asked what she meant. She shrugged. Nothing. Just, you're not really part of this family, are you? That was the first crack. The seed that grew into a forest of betrayal. I should have left then, walked away quietly. But I stayed, hoping love could heal what malice had rooted. Subtle signs became harder to ignore. Missing bills, whispered phone calls behind closed doors. My wife's suddenly defending actions I hadn't even noticed were wrong. It was like watching a slow-motion collapse. And I was powerless. Or so I pretended. Every smile, every thank you at holidays, every hug, it became an armor of deception. They didn't know I was watching. I always watch. And then came the real confirmation. I found the text thread she thought I'd never see. Detailed complaints about me. Plans to sell the house without telling me. A wedding budget drafted meticulously to erase my influence. My chest tightened, but I didn't panic. I felt something sharper, clarity. Cold, precise, ruthless clarity. I spent weeks gathering proof, quietly cataloging every move they made, every whispered lie, receipts, messages, video snippets from security cameras I'd installed months ago under the guise of safety. Each piece was a puzzle, a map leading to the eventual moment I would step from shadow to light, from victim to architect. I watched their confidence swell, blind to the storm I was constructing beneath their feet. Then I acted. First, the house. I signed the papers quietly, legally. Every asset relocated, the house sold, wedding expenses cancelled, invitations recalled. The stepdaughter's circle, the friends and relatives who had gaslighted me alongside her, were none the wiser. They assumed I'd fled, angry, defeated. Perfect. Let them think I was gone. Let them assume they had won. The night I left, I moved through the empty house with deliberate care. I placed items precisely where they'd have the maximum emotional impact. Family photos untouched, but the frames turned face down. Her mother's favorite vase shattered in the center of the living room. A single note rested on the mantel, written in my hand. You wanted me gone, so I left. Some things never disappear. I paused at the bedroom door. I knew this was the core, the nerve center of their fantasy life. Inside, I left the final piece. Not money, not a gift, something heavier, something to remind them of every insult, every slight, every plan they had executed against me. I left their secrets in plain sight, documents, messages, photographs, evidence of every betrayal, meticulously arranged. When they discovered it, it wouldn't just sting. They'd burn in the memory of what they had thought would be invisible, their undoing. Weeks later, I received the call. Panic in her voice, disbelief in my wife's. I stayed calm, cold. Every syllable measured. Where is everything? Her stepdaughter's voice trembled. Everything? I asked, faint amusement in my tone. Everything you wanted. I disappeared. And yet, it seems not quite enough. By the time they returned to the house, it was empty. Not abandoned, but stripped of the illusions they clung to. Documents revealing their deceit, their scheming, their attempts to erase me lay scattered across the floor. The sight of it shattered the image they had built of dominance, of control. Her mother sank to the carpet, silent, aghast. My stepdaughter's screams bounced off the bare walls. Powerless fury transformed into helpless rage. I stayed in the shadows watching. I didn't yell. I didn't run. I didn't gloat in words. Every reaction they had, every tear and shout, was the payment I had orchestrated. The chaos wasn't mine. It was theirs. Earned fully, mercilessly. When I finally walked away, I felt no relief, only precision. Satisfaction wasn't sweet. It was clean. I had been wronged, underestimated, dismissed, and yet here I was, the quiet force that reminded them of the cost of betrayal. They would rebuild eventually. But the memory of that moment, the exposure of all their deceit, would linger. A ghost in the corners of every room. In the weeks after, I reflected. Not on anger, not on loss, not even on the absence I had created, but on control, on patience, on the power of silence, the power of planning, the power of vanishing at the exact moment they expected compliance. I realized that revenge isn't loud. It isn't messy. It's deliberate. It's the slow, unrelenting certainty that your absence can speak louder than any confrontation. That what you leave behind, truth carefully revealed, is a legacy sharper than any words. I learned something about betrayal, too. It can only wound you if you let it define you. I chose otherwise. I chose the quiet, calculated path. I chose to turn their weapon, their cruelty, their hatred, into the instrument of their own undoing. And in that choice, I found something even more satisfying than victory, freedom. They call it poetic justice. I call it balance. The house is empty. The wedding cancelled. The illusions shattered. And me? I am gone, but not forgotten. Not by them. They will remember the emptiness I left, the precision of it, the inevitability. That is my greatest gift to them. Not anger, not malice, control, awareness. The proof that sometimes the quietest person in the room holds the sharpest knife. As I sit in my new life, unbound by the toxicity of that family, I feel no glee. Only clarity. Betrayal is an art, and revenge, when executed with patience and precision, is a masterpiece. The house may be empty, but the echoes remain, reverberating through every corner of their minds. Every glance at the empty mantle, every photo turned face down, every document exposed, they will know the truth. And I will never return. Because sometimes disappearing is the loudest statement of all.